Alrighty. Well, that was a little bit of a challenge there, but at least we're in. Terrence, nice to meet you. So I guess I only have 3 minutes, so it's a little less time than I thought I was going to have here. But I'm going to go into some of the arguments that I have here. I have 5 overall arguments about Christianity. Now, the fundamental point that we have to go into is that Christianity must be proven. And the natural state of any human is skepticism until something is shown to be correct. For instance, we are not Muslims. We are, or at least you are not a Muslim, and you are not a Buddhist or any of these sorts of things. Why? Because until it is shown to be correct, it would be irrational to just believe it. So the first point is that the natural state of humanity would be to be a skeptic. Now, that being said, there are multiple reasons why I would say that Christianity itself is not actually the truth. Now, I actually don't have enough time to go into as much as I was going to go into, but the first point I want to go at is the problem of infinite foresight. The idea of the Christian God is that he is omnipotent, all-loving, and omniscient. However, this causes a problem in that that means that God has infinite foresight of the future, of the past, and of the present. That means he knows every single person who will go to hell, and yet he still makes every single one of those persons. That also means that he created Lucifer, and he knew exactly what Lucifer would do and still chose to make him. That also means that in the Garden of Eden, God created the apple, the knowledge apple, the one that humanity ate and it has caused it to fall. He could have just not put the apple there. He knew exactly what would happen, and yet he still chose to do it. Now, the second argument I have is that of unintelligent design. Christians like to talk about intelligent design. However, we see so many flaws in the world, evil, sin, cruelty, and yet all of that would not be possible if we had a perfect creator. Because to a perfect being, to create something which is imperfect suggests that he is not actually perfect. So it would be impossible, or at least highly improbable, for the Christian God to have created that. The third argument I have is that of evils ordered by God. In the Old Testament, God ordered the murder and carnage of multiple different villages, including the Midianites. And there are multiple verses you can look to, but I don't actually have time to look at them right now. We can look at them later on. The fourth argument I wanted to put down here is that of salvation by luck, which is based on the fact that billions of people will never hear of Jesus. If it is necessary to know Jesus in order to have the opportunity for salvation, God has made it so that we are being saved by luck. And the fifth point I have is that it is a terrible plan for salvation. Why is it that we would require God to kill himself to save humanity? Why couldn't he have thought of a better way to do this? Overall, the narrative does not make sense.
Okay, so my opening statements are not going to be too long because I'm going to leave you time to go ahead and prove your points. What I will say is Christianity is a faith-based religion. Faith means you have confidence in something that you have not perceived with your own 5 senses. A verse, and I'll just say this: 1 Peter 3:15, and I don't know if you have a Bible over there, but from time to time I will quote a scripture. It says, "Worship Christ as Lord of your life, and if someone asks you about your hope as a believer, always be ready to explain it, but do this in a gentle and respectful way." With that being said, Christianity is not actually on trial right now in this debate, so it's not like that. I will, however, listen to what you have to say, and I will offer different opinions on everything you say. I do not expect to convince you, because convincing somebody that God exists is actually different than actually debating it. Whether there's proof or not, that still does not mean that you'll be that you'll actually decide that God actually exists or that Christianity is real. But however, like I told you in the topic, that the burden of proof is actually on you to show that Christianity is either unproven or false. With that being said, I'll go ahead and pass the mic to you.
I think the fundamental issue here is what does it mean that something is unproven? And I think that with any contention that is raised, it is required to prove that contention. Christianity is the idea that there is rational basis for faith, that you should put faith in Christianity, which I think you would agree with. So the question is why? What reason is there to put this faith in something? Because you don't put faith in Islam. You don't put faith in any of the other religions. You don't put faith in Santa Claus. You don't put faith in Tinkerbell. Why not? Because the logic isn't there, because there's no reason behind it. That's why if faith is to exist, there must be a reasonable degree of certainty behind why you would put faith in something, which is why there must be arguments presented as to why you believe in Christianity. Now, you talked about how faith requires a lack of senses, and this is understandable. Yeah, I'm okay with the idea of faith. Like, for instance, I'm a former Christian myself, and I think that the idea of the Trinity or supernatural mysteries are an excellent thing that we can accept. But first, you would have to prove the fundamental basis of the religion in the first place, because you would have to show to a reasonable degree of certainty why you put faith in this thing. And then you can put the faith into the elements of it that are beyond comprehension, like, for instance, supernatural mysteries. But what does not make sense is simply to put faith in something that might not be true, because what's making you choose that thing to put faith in the first place? Now, you mentioned 1 Peter 3:15 says that we must worship God. However, this is circular reasoning. You are using the Bible to prove the Bible. How did you come to this idea? What objective standard do you have to bring up the idea that we should listen to this? Why exactly is this the truth? Now, you pointed out that God, if God exists, you won't be able to convince me in this debate, and I won't be able to convince you either, and this is understandable. However, the question is, what is the best form of reason that can lead us to the truth? Jesus said that he is the truth. And if that is the case, then the best thing we could possibly do would be to challenge him. I mentioned I'm a former Christian. I was searching really hard, and I saw that verse when Jesus said, he is the way, the truth, and the life. And I thought to myself, wow, okay, so if I really challenge, I really search, I will be led back to the truth. The problem is when I really challenged and I really searched, what I saw was that those arguments aren't there. And that's why ultimately I realized I have to remain agnostic, because that is simply what the truth is right now, that we don't have the evidence that proves the existence of Christianity. And there are multiple arguments that suggest otherwise, like I had mentioned earlier, and I can bring some of them up again later on. But at least for the moment, I'd be interested in hearing what you have to say about why you believe Christianity rather than some other religion. What makes you put the faith in this specific thing?
All right, so you brought up the fact of using the Bible. I guess you could say using the Bible to defend the Bible, and I guess you feel that that is unjust. Well, the Bible is not the only time when you do that. Like for example, and these may be a little too far for you, but like if I have something in my eye, right? And there's some dirt in my eye, I can use this eye to examine the dirt in the eye. If I'm fighting in a war, if I'm defending this hill, I can stand on the hill to defend the hill. I say that to say that using the Bible to defend the Bible is not exactly unjust. But you asked me to defend my faith, and I guess I don't understand. That would be flipping it on me to actually show that my faith is just. However, okay, my camera froze a little bit. However, the debate is about, I guess would say, is more or less about you proving that it is not just, as opposed to me trying to prove while my faith is just. Please let me know if you, I'm going to pass it to you, but let me know if you see it different than I see it.
You're breaking up a little bit there, but I think I heard the gist of that. Essentially, and give me a nod if I'm phrasing this correctly, but what you're saying is that you're talking about the burden of proof, essentially, that I should have to disprove Christianity rather than you having to prove it. Is that the gist of what you're going for there? Yeah. Now here's the thing. I'm not an atheist. I'm an agnostic. In order to prove agnosticism, you must prove that there is not reason to put faith into one specific religion. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying necessarily that God does not exist. I think it's possible that there's a creator. However, I have seen no evidence to suggest that it is the Christian God. I see no reason for that. Moreover, the fact that there are so many different religions suggests that every single one, except at least one, at most one of them is correct, and yet all the other ones are incorrect. So by the fact that you put faith in Christianity, you automatically say that Islam is not the correct faith, and you automatically say Buddhism is not the correct faith. What I am questioning is how it is that you are able to say Christianity is necessarily correct. Let's talk about the narrative of Christianity. And I kind of rushed over this in my opening statement, although I did it quickly. The narrative doesn't make any sense because God, who is perfect, created humans knowing exactly what would happen, knowing the future. He knew exactly the path that they would take, that they would fall, and that in order for them to obtain salvation, he would have to send his son to be killed. His son, who is also God. So God knew that if he created humans this way, he would literally have to kill himself to save them. That's not an intelligent designer. That's an artistic failure. That's the worst artistic failure in the history of the world. That's not a narrative that suggests that this is truth. Quite to the contrary. So my point is simply that the arguments for Christianity do not seem to prove it. Even if you were to prove God, it doesn't prove Christianity. So I'll be interested in knowing how you reach the idea that Christianity is true.
All right. Once again, well, and I'm not trying. I assure you, I am not trying to be difficult on the point whatsoever. I'm not. I'm being very careful of where you try to push the debate to. So right now, I want to talk about basically what you call unintelligent design. Okay. So in talking about this, it's important to know that it's about free choice, and that's when you're talking about why did God do this and why did God do that, and he invented man knowing that he created man knowing that man would do this. It is all about free choice, and when you're talking about he did this knowing that he would have to kill his son, well, I don't know. I saw this. There's this movie. I'll just say it like this. It's more about. Wait, do you have kids? You can just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Okay, so that in that way, it would probably be hard for you to understand it. But for those of us with kids, we perfectly understand how if it comes down to a choice in between you sentencing your kid to death or you sentencing your kid to something wrong, that is a hard decision. And most of us would rather sacrifice ourselves for our children as opposed to having our children take any kind of punishment. That is the intelligent design of God. And that is where it's coming from when you're talking about that Jesus died for his people. Well, he created man knowing that he would have to die for them. I understand that exactly. That exactly shows just how much love that God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit has for his creation. That he loved them so much that he was willing to die to take the punishment for them so they wouldn't have to take it.
No, you mentioned free choice, and free will is a common argument that is made in defense of Christianity, that this is the way it had to be. There had to be a choice between good and evil, and humanity chooses evil, and then therefore it's our fault. However, my response to that is that seems like a cop-out. Because God, who, according to the Christian idea of God, God is perfect. He is omnipotent. He can do whatever he chooses. So God could have created a world in which, with our free will, we choose good. Why does he create a world in which humanity is fallen? Why does he put the apple in the garden that humanity then eats and falls when he knew that was exactly what was going to happen? Why would he test them with a test he already knows the answer to, damning them to hell? There are billions upon billions of people who will suffer eternal torment, according to the idea of Christianity, who God could have just not made in the first place, or he could have made them better. Why wouldn't he do this? A just, loving God, which is what Christianity says he is, would have done so. So why didn't this one? The narrative doesn't add up. And then you mentioned that God, I don't have a son. You talked about how a loving person would sacrifice a son, that it is an incredible sacrifice. I understand this. That does make sense. Even though I don't have a son myself or a daughter or anything like that. I'm too young for that. But at the same time, Why did he need to? Had God, who is omnipotent, done a better job in creation in the first place, we wouldn't have had this problem. There wouldn't have been a need for Jesus. Moreover, why couldn't God have just appeared to each of us individually? Why couldn't that happen? Why couldn't God have appeared over the universe in a way that everyone could see him at once? Why did God choose to appear to one specific segment, the Jews? Why just them? And more than that, why is it that if he's appearing to this one specific section, why doesn't he do it again? Why don't we ever see him? Why didn't he appear to the Asians at the time? Why did he only appear to Judaism? And more than that, why did he wait thousands of years before coming up? That's so unjust. Because think about it. God wiped out the entire earth in the flood. Why didn't Jesus appear before the flood to save them? Instead, God had created all these people who were then condemned to hell. That's everlasting torture. That is not the actions of a loving God. That is the actions of a cruel being, or perhaps a made-up being.
Okay, so in everything you just said, you basically just took away free will. I don't remember all of the examples you gave, but it was basically, why didn't God create a world that did not have the apple? Why didn't God create a world where, for every example you gave, it was an example that takes away free choice? I mean, that's what it all boils down to. Like, why didn't God just create everybody? Or at least, why didn't God just appear to every single person in existence? That takes away faith. Now, understanding that in the Bible it does say by grace are you, hold on, I don't want to mess that up. Okay, I won't go down that road just yet. I'm trying to stick according to my notes so far, but it has to do with faith. That's not faith. You don't have faith in God if God is physically, like, let's go back to the five senses, and it has to do with faith, and it has to do with free choice. And for everything you just said, it takes away either faith in God or free choice in choosing God. So each one of those things you just named, it would take away some part of being human, which is your ability to have faith in something and your ability to have free will to choose God, just like you have free will to not choose God. However, never mind. You're still Christianity. Go ahead. I'm making sure you stay on track with as far as it being on Christianity, not that it's trying to prove or disprove the existence of God.
No, yeah, I am not trying to prove or disprove the existence of God. I'm focusing on Christianity here. I'm interested in the concept of the Christian God, the idea of this omnipotent, omniscient, perfect being who has all knowledge of past, present, and future. That being is the one who I'm focused on. And the problem is the contradictions within that God. And that does not sound like the all-loving God that he says he is, because of the things that we have then seen. I'm going to point to the Bible now and talk about how it doesn't actually match up with that. In the Old Testament particularly, but even occasionally in the New Testament, we see multiple evils that are ordered by God. For instance, if you look at Numbers 31:17, where God at the beginning of Numbers has ordered the Hebrews to kill the Midianites. And Moses, as his spokesperson, says, "Now kill all the boys and kill every woman who has slept with a man, but save for yourselves every girl who has never slept with a man." So the Israelites, with God's permission and under Moses' ordering, are killing every man, woman, well, not woman. They're not killing every woman. They keep every virgin girl for themselves. That is not the actions of a loving God. Those are the actions of a cruel being. And that's not the only time. And God even orders the killings of infants. 1 Samuel 15:2-4 says, "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, go and smite Amalek, and utterly destroy all that they have. And spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass." Destroy every infant? This is God, the word of God. 1 Samuel, thus saith the Lord, that the Israelites are being ordered to murder infants in God's name. These are not the actions of the loving God of Christianity. The person who Christians claim he is not the person who we actually see. You talk about how we need to have free will, and we need to have these things. Why? Where do you come up with this idea? Why is this such a necessary thing? How do you prove this is the truth? How do you prove that this whole narrative of Christianity is accurate when multiple times the claims that it makes aren't even backed up in its own text? How do you come to that?
Wait, hold on. All right, so, man, I'm trying to understand the point you're trying to make. Okay, so when you say that it's not backed up, just one more time, when you say that it's not backed up in its own text, you're talking about, what exactly are you talking about, just specifically with that is not backed up in its own text?
Oh. Oh, okay, I'm back. All right. So all I'm saying is I am agnostic. I'm not atheist. I'm not saying there is no God. I'm saying there may be a God. But if there is a God, we must question, is it the Christian God? Has that been proven? And if it was proven, the proof text of the Christian God is the Bible. So is it holding up to its own claims? Is this God being seen to be truly all-loving, all-knowing, omnipotent, omniscient? Is he all of these things that the Christians claim he is? And the evidence does not suggest that that is the case.
I feel like, okay, so I feel like for every time you pass it to me, you're stopping just short of a point that I'm trying to understand. And then you pass it to me and I'm like, hold on, what were you about to say? Okay, so you're talking about the Old Testament, and it's important to understand. I'm gonna stop saying it's important to understand, but okay, when you're looking at the Bible is a complete story, okay? You're taken from the beginning of time all the way to the end of time. And at the same time, when you're talking about God, and it's always awesome that whenever someone, and I almost call it putting God on trial. Whenever someone is putting God on trial, they bring up they go to the Old Testament and they bring up Old Testament things, and anything that's negative that they perceive to be as negative from God, that's what they're going to highlight on, and that's what they're going to pick on. However, what you miss is all the good stuff, all the positive stuff, everything that goes into it. Like, for the whole Bible is one story. And by story, I'm not trying to sell it short. Is one whole testament of God and his love for humans, and the fall of man, God's constant trying to save man over and over again, and man rebelling against God over and over again. Man trying to live by the law in the Old Testament, which is what man is trying to do, is trying to live by the Old Testament law. And finally, you come to the New Testament where Jesus comes and he does away with the old law, and he gives us the opportunity to be saved and find eternal life by just believing and having faith. So you can't just highlight some negative stuff and say that's ungodly without taking the whole Bible into context.
So in response to that, I have two responses. The first one is that Jesus Christ is the Son of God and is God himself. So anything that God said in the Old Testament was what Jesus said, because Jesus is God. So you can't just say, oh, we throw out all those bad things from the Old Testament, because that was God. God literally ordered that. God is Jesus. They are the same. You cannot have one and not have the other. The second response I have is that Jesus himself said opposite. Jesus said he has not come to abolish the law of the prophets. He will not rest until while those things remain. It is actually, let me see if I can find the verse there, or I can look that up and I'll let you go here. But Jesus did not change the words of the Old Testament. And overall, let me come back to the overall point here. The point of this discussion: has Christianity been proven? Because if it's not proven, then why do we put faith in it rather than putting faith in something else, or not putting faith in anything at all? That's the ultimate question here. Why do you choose Christianity for your faith? Why not the Quran? Why not Islam? Why not Buddhism? Why not these things? Is it because of reason? Is it because of faith? What is your answer on that?
Oh, okay. I was making sure it went back to me. Just so you know, Jesus came to fulfill the law, in which he did, and this would almost take us to a Bible study almost. But at no point did I say that I was not trying to get rid of the things in the Old Testament. I was only saying that it's part of a whole story, and it's interesting. No, I'm not gonna let you try to back me into that corner, because I would not do that. But I'll say it is on faith. You said, what makes me believe that Christianity is this and this? Is it this? Is it this? Is it faith? Yes, that is exactly what it is. It's faith.
Oh, okay. All right. If it is just faith, that really is the central question here. Why is it just faith? And I've asked this question several times, because there is no standard by which we would just randomly have faith in something. Why don't you have faith in Santa Claus? I asked this earlier. Why not have faith in Tinkerbell? You need to have faith in Tinkerbell, or she dies, right? It's important. Why don't you have faith in Islam? Why not faith in Buddhism? Why? What is it about that? Well, how do you prove the objective reason to have faith in your specific thing? That's the ultimate question. Because the question in this debate is Christianity proven? Is it proven or true? Or is it unproven or false? And I would say that it's not proven, because the only reason people would believe it is if they just randomly choose to believe it. Do you have any objective standard or any objective reason why someone objectively looking at the issue would choose this?
All right. So without going too far, because listen, and I want you to understand this. I think I've had many debates on religion, and the reason why I guess I'm being so specific with my answers is we're basically at a crossroads, and any answer that I give is going to lead down to a certain road, and it's going to make this debate almost crazy, especially with the last question you asked me, because it basically leads to me speaking on the Bible, and the Bible is the standard, and the Bible is faith. And when I read the Bible, I see evidence of it being true today. And which, once I say the Bible and I say that I have faith in Christianity because of the Bible, and because when I read the Bible, I see evidence of it being true, and I see evidence of the Creator in his creation, which is humanity, which is the world around me, then that's going to lead you to almost put the Bible on trial next. And I'll go ahead and pass it back to you. But actually, before I do that, I just want to say this. What you're asking is, I'll just say the answer to everything you just said is faith. And having faith in the religion, like you bring up Santa Claus, I'm sure if there's somebody somewhere that probably never mind. I'm not gonna go there, but I'll just say faith.
Faith, however, can be dangerous. I mean, we just mentioned Santa Claus. Why not have faith in Santa Claus? You cannot just say, I'm going to have faith. You can't. Because you could say that about literally anything, like Santa Claus. So what is your standard? What makes you choose the faith of Christianity? More than that, have you read the Quran? Because you talk about how you've read the Bible and you see the truth of the Bible everywhere. But if that's the only thing you're reading, and if you're already biased towards wanting it to be true, then of course you're going to see that in your world. Have you read the Book of Mormon? Have you read the books, the holy books of the Hindus? Have you read any of these? Or is it just the Bible? And if so, doesn't that make it obvious why, of course, you'd see God's creation, because that's the only book you're reading, right?
Okay, and now, see, and God is a just God. That's all I'll say. To answer that question, what you just said, which is, have I read any of these other books? In actuality, I actually have. I am actually a religious studies major, and I have. And understand this, and I'm trying not to turn this into a Bible study. There's a lot of people that are religious and they read the Bible and that's where they go. There's a certain level of when you make it past and you read the scripture and you pray, and the communion you feel with God, the communion you feel with the Trinity, and I'm saying the Trinity because you did bring up the Trinity earlier. And when you fully commit and you really are truly a believer, it becomes apparent, and you can't explain that to someone who hasn't truly really believed in the Bible and hasn't really truly believed in God, the Christian God. It's hard to explain to somebody that. If you talk to another Christian, and there's some other Christians that I'm sure are watching this, it's a feeling. It's a feeling of being at peace with nature, and it's the feeling that the level of comfort that God gives you. And if you've never been there, you question the faith, and you wonder, how exactly can this person have faith in this? How is it? What makes this person wake up in the morning and pray? What makes this person go through and do all this? It's a feeling that it is very hard to explain to somebody who's never had it.
Now, I mentioned that I'm a former Christian. I have had it. I studied theology at a very Catholic college, and one of the things that I would write all my papers on was how to prove the existence of God. I always felt that as long as we could prove the existence of God and prove the importance of Christianity, then it would be perfectly reasonable to have faith in the elements of that religion that are beyond comprehension, like the Trinity, the supernatural mysteries, the virgin birth. I thought that would make perfect sense. But there has to be a reason to put faith on it in the first place. Otherwise, it's just circular reasoning. I understand that this is a very personal thing. You have these personal feelings, and you talk about the personal emotions and feelings it gives to you. But in your debater profile, you talk about how we have to bring facts, not feelings. Where are the facts on this? How do you factually establish an objective reason to come to Christianity? How do you come to that?
All right, so yes, facts, not feelings. I love when you try. Obviously, you watch some of my debates. Oh, that's so awesome. I wish you had more debates so I could watch yours. But there's all of like one. So I did. Hey, I did watch your one though. Congratulations on that one. But what you said just now, you took away faith. Like, for everything you said, that's not. Understand this. When you say, why is there no this? It's objective, and I need proof of this, and there's proof of that. That everything you have right there is not faith. That's not faith. It's like, if I need proof of it beforehand, if I need proof before I believe in it, then that takes away faith. That's not faith at all. And that's my only point to that. If I need, if you have proof before you believe in something, then that takes away the element of faith. And that takes away any kind of religious experience whatsoever. If you need proof beforehand, before you believe and before you have faith. Like I said, it's about faith.
If it is only about faith, then I think you have agreed that Christianity is unproven. It is unproven. So it may be true or it may be false, but at the very least, it is unproven. It's just something you choose to believe. Unless you have a logical or some form of objective standard to choose how you come to that conclusion, it is just you putting faith randomly in something. And I must come back to the fact that there are 30,000 different religions. Why don't you have faith in any of those? Why only Christianity? That really is the difference here. There was a well-known atheist philosopher who pointed out that I believe we are all atheists. The only difference is I believe in one less God than you. When you understand why you reject the other 30,000 gods, you'll understand why I reject yours. And I think that's a really good point, because you do reject all the other gods. You don't put faith in them. You've never mentioned them. You don't put faith in that. But you do decide to randomly put faith in Christianity. And I do call it random because you haven't presented any reason for it, except that it's just what you do. And I'm not saying it's necessarily false, but if you can't show why it's true, then you have just chosen to randomly put faith on one specific thing without any real reason for it.
That is a little inaccurate. That is inaccurate a lot. First of all, I gave you the reason why I believe that Christianity is true, and I told you it was the Bible. And I told you because when I read the Bible, and that it gives me that I can look at the Bible and see and take everything that it says about humanity, about creation, about everything, and I look out my window and I can see, man, that is exactly true. It's not just some random, it's not like I just had, basically I had a Quran, a Buddhist, something over here and something else, and I flipped a coin and went off that to pick it. No, I consider myself to be a very educated person, and nobody, no matter who you talk to in their path to Christianity, I assure you, their path to Christianity is far from random. You have a lot of people who have come to the end of the road, one step short of suicide, people that are addicted to drugs and stuff like that. And it is the Christian God that in the Bible and the teachings and the stories and that feeling of now being complete and that feeling of agape love that saves a person. So it's not random, and it's not just, like I said, a flip of a coin. And my proof is the Bible.
I like the sound effect at the end there. That makes it fun. All right. But I think we have to come back to one of the points that I originally mentioned when you said that your proof for Christianity is the Bible. But the Bible is also proving itself. So you don't actually have any outside standard. The only reason you would believe that is if you already believed it. Do you have any reason that anyone who is looking at something objectively, as in someone who doesn't already believe what you believe, how could they logically come to the same conclusions you have made? Actually, I'll just let you go there. How would they?
By doing research, by reading the Bible, and it will, like I said, I can say the Bible is faith, and you say, I'm sorry, and you say, well, the Bible is proving itself. Well, that makes it very much true when you can read it and it stands on its own. It's probably one of the only books that can do that. It's like, okay, let me ask you this question. When you were let's say you were in grade school and you read a math book and it says 1 + 1 is 2. Okay, just because that 1 + 1 is 2 in that book, it doesn't make 1 + 1 plus 1 + 1 equals 2 fake or anything like that. It doesn't take away from it. It says it's a fact. It's what it says in the Bible. The Bible telling these stories, and the Bible that has this stuff, and the Bible that gives its story of creation and how creation came to be, it gives very, very, very good reasons on why you should believe that Christianity is not unproven, but true. That is the proof right there. Christianity is true based on.
Well, actually, that's why my initial points were talking about the problems with the ideas presented within the Bible. The idea of this creator who is omnipotent, omniscient, perfect, all-loving, and the contradictions within. Because I agree with you that we should be able to say, oh, 1 + 1 is 2. What is 2 divided by 1? And you can reverse check it, right? So you should be able to do the same thing with the Bible. You should be able to look at the Bible and reverse check it. You should be able to do the same thing with any religion. So is that the case when you look at the Bible? Well, when I was first considering leaving Christianity, what I made myself do was I made myself read the New Testament twice and then the Old Testament. I said, I'm going to look at this objectively. I'm going to look at it the same way that I looked at it when I read the Quran. And what I saw was, if you look at it without already believing it, it doesn't necessarily add up. There's a lot of things that you notice in it that just don't work. Like, for instance, the fact that Jesus, I mentioned this earlier, Jesus said that he had not come to abolish the law or the prophets. He talked about how he was changing things. He said he wasn't. That's in Matthew 5:17 through 20. You can look at some of the atrocities committed by the Israelites in the Old Testament, the entire books of Joshua, the Numbers, the Levitican Code, so many horrible things that were advocated in the name of this religion. It doesn't add up. Moreover, when you think about it from the perspective of why would God do these things, it doesn't add up. That was what I was talking about at the beginning here. Why would God create humans in a way that is so flawed that he will have to kill himself to save them? That doesn't add up. That's poor design. Now, is it possible? Maybe. Is it probable? Certainly not. And that's ultimately why I do not believe that Christianity has proven itself. So I'd be interested to see, on a logical level, do you have some way of showing that Christianity is proving itself?
When I believe it was Matthew 5 that you were quoting and stuff like that, you always leave out, you read, and this is one of those things with my theology. I take theology very serious, just so you know. And you always stop just short of the next part. And it's, you know what? Let me flip this to King James. Okay. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. And that's about where you stop at. And the second half of that is, I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. And yes, Jesus was the fulfillment of that. If you go back to the Old Testament, you see that all these prophets are predicting the coming of Jesus, predicting someone that would come and fulfill the law, predicting someone that would come and redeem man. That is Jesus. Jesus is the fulfillment of the law. So that should end almost that point right there with you keep saying this, and the Bible does not contradict itself. Nowhere in the Bible does it contradict itself at all. I saw the eyebrows raised, but just so you know, yes, the Bible does not contradict itself at all anywhere.
I mean, I don't have time to go back. I have a whole list of contradictions within the Bible, but I don't have time to read them since we only have 30 minutes each. But I will point out that you talked about how I wasn't reading the whole quote. I actually referred you to Matthew 5:17 through 20. So you actually can go even further than what you were reading there. I'll read the whole thing right now. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. I tell you the truth, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen, will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. That does not say that he is changing it. It says that not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen will be removed. He is upholding the ideals that are proclaimed in the Old Testament, the Levitican Code. And this is the thing that you see, really, when you look at it. And I read the New Testament twice just to see it. And what I noticed was Jesus doesn't actually say all that much. And I know this sounds really like harsh because to you and everything, but I didn't see it. He said mostly, it boiled down to a couple of things. He said, love your neighbor and give up your worldly possessions. There wasn't much more than that was really in his message. But this is kind of besides the point, because the overall question here is whether or not Christianity has been proven. And so far, your only proof for Christianity is you said, look at the Bible, which is, first of all, circular reasoning. That's not proof in and of itself. You also haven't been able to show why we should look at the Bible rather than looking at the Quran, or rather than the Book of Mormon, or rather than any other religious text. And finally, even if you look at the Bible, it doesn't prove itself. There are multiple times when the Bible commits atrocities. There are multiple times when you read the Bible and you go, wow, that doesn't add up to this idea of this omnipotent, omniscient creator. So it doesn't prove it. And at this point, it winds up being that Christianity, therefore, would be either unproven or false.
This would, okay, so just to let you know, and man, now I have so much coming to my mind right now, to the point where my Bible over here is just, it's on fire right now for me wanting to flip so much. But you're coming into a issue that most people do not understand, and it's those that just read the Bible without truly understanding the Bible. Okay, so when you go to, and I have one off the top of my head right now, when you go to like Hebrews 8:13, Hebrews chapter 8, 13th verse, it says, when God speaks of a new covenant, it means he has made the first one obsolete. It is now out of date and will soon disappear. The thing is, you have to understand, and this will take a whole another debate on a completely separate topic on the new covenant versus the old covenant. If you talk to somebody that's Christian, there's a large amount of people who, they consider themselves to be new covenant Christians or something like that. That is because the first covenant was the first. Okay, let me try to sum this up in 1 minute 47 seconds. So you have the original first covenant. Now, right now, the Bible, there's a New Testament and the Old Testament, and it basically, the New Testament starts at Matthew, right there. But in reality, if you were just to actually go off the readings of the book, then you would have to rip that New Testament page out of your Bible and move it over about 4 books behind John. Now, when you read, because that is from Genesis to John, is the old covenant. The new covenant starts at the book of Acts. That is a new promise, and that is based off the blood of Jesus. Like I said, you're getting into an area right now that's going to turn really, really deep into a Bible study. But the Bible does prove itself, and you don't need to just say the Bible proved itself. You can take what the Bible says and look at the laws of thermodynamics. You can look at the creation. You can look at the planets. You can look at everything, and there's proof. You can look at the Bible, and like I said, look out your window, and there's evidence. I don't need to just say, it's not like I'm sitting inside this little echo chamber of, I have the Bible right here, and I'm only saying the Bible, the Bible, the Bible. No, you can look at the Bible and then say, okay, let me look at the Grand Canyon and the strata there and say, oh man, you know what? The Bible says creation happened just like this in this order right here. And then when I look at the earth and the strata, it happened exactly like that. Wow, it must be true. It's in the Bible. You can see the evidence of the Creator in His creation.
I think you just ended. All right. Yes, you can see a lot of beauty in the world. You certainly can. So 2 and 2 are 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. You can reverse check it. Let's reverse check it on God. If this really is an intelligent creator, the actions that we see in this universe should add up to it. And yes, we do see a lot of beauty. We see that. But we also see so many flaws in this universe. There's pain, there's suffering, there's torture, there's cruelty, there's evil, there's sin, all over the place. There are even just basic design flaws. Like, for instance, this is one that I always ask. Why do women have to have periods? What sort of rational creator was like, how do I come up with a way for women to know they're not pregnant once a month? I don't know. I could maybe have their left eye twitch, or I could have them bleed out of their vagina. Why? Why would you pick that? Why is that your design idea? That doesn't add up. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't suggest an intelligent designer. That suggests that it was chance, or that it was a cruel designer, or an illogical designer, or just a designer who didn't know what he was doing. Yes, there's beauty in the world, but there's so many times when you don't see beauty, and you see quite the opposite. So you can't say that we look at the beauty in the world and that proves the creator, not at all. It suggests that maybe there was someone who made the universe, but it doesn't point to the Christian God. It doesn't point to this all-loving, perfect being. So let's come back to the overall point here, which is not necessarily God, it's Christianity. How do you prove specifically the Christian God, this omnipotent, omniscient being who is all perfect and all loving?
All right. So let me say this. All right. And even though you say I'm not an atheist, I'm agnostic or something like that, I'm just going to loop that all into the atheist category anyway. So, how do I say this right? So, atheists work off a flawed philosophical premise where they believe the presence of God should be something measurable. The premise of duality, that since there is life and there's death, then God is either good or God is bad. And that's attempting to use human logic to measure God, which you can't do. That's attempting to use a finite measurement to measure something infinite. There's many things that we do not understand. Like scientists, there's magnetism, there's electricity, there's a lot of things that people can't explain. So you can't just say that, I need some kind of measurable proof that there is God. And I keep telling you, you take away faith. And trust me, bringing up the menstruation of a female, that is very complex. And that's something that I don't think any man understands, but it does show a very detailed design. And a lot of the things you brought up, those are not things that you can't say that, God gave you free will. And now with this free will, if I do something wrong, that it's God's fault. He gave me the ability to choose to do right and wrong. If I choose to do it and use it and do it in a negative way, then that's me. If I choose to, sorry, let me switch that. I don't want to see myself to hell. If you choose to just turn away from God and never go back, something like that, that's your decision. But you have the same Bible that I have. You have the same proof that the Bible outlines that I have. And whether you accept it as proof or not is, it's also subjective. But what I'm saying is this: Christianity is a religion of faith. And my faith is not completely a blind faith, because, like I said, you can take the Quran and look at a Bible and compare it to you and look up facts, not feelings, of what you see and what they say happened and how the world is and stuff like that. And it paints a picture of Christianity being the true religion.
But I didn't see that. Because when I read the Bible the same way I read the Quran, from an objective standpoint, or at least an attempt to be objective, because obviously we are, you mentioned it, we are finite beings. So you're right, we cannot know the mind of an infinite being. But what we can do is we can be as close to that as possible. Another point I'd like to bring up here is that we are finite beings because he made us this way. If he is who you say he is, he's the one who set these parameters. He's the one who said, this is the standard that you have. Why, if he's creating us to come to knowledge through our senses, would he then not show himself to us through the senses? No one has ever seen God the Father. Supposedly, some people saw God the Son, and yet it was only a very small subsection of the world. Most of the people, even at their own time, didn't even see him. And certainly none of us have ever seen him. So it does not add up that God, who is infinite, would have forced us to be these finite beings who are unable to verify such things. But with the verification methods that we do have, we should do the best we can, because that's, if you are correct that he is there, then that's how he made us, to use our verification the best we can. How do we verify things? We don't verify things just by randomly believing them. We verify things by using reason, by attempting to use reason. Rational faith is understandable. I'm not saying we should discount faith. I think that faith makes sense in certain areas, like I mentioned, like the Trinity or like supernatural mysteries. But you can't just put faith in something until you have a reasonable degree of certainty that it is accurate. And you've presented no reason that we could start with that idea. The only reason that, actually, I'm going to point this out here. The only reason you've been able to present for why we should believe in Christianity is because after you already believed in Christianity and read the Bible, you believed it. But you didn't start with that. If you read the Bible the same way you read the Quran, which is what I did, you might see it a different way. Because I used to read the Bible like you. I read it and I was like, wow, it's so beautiful, and it confirms everything I already believe. Because I already believed it. But that's the problem. It's circular reasoning. There's no objective reason that we would have come to that. So then I read the Quran and I was like, yeah, this is not real. I don't believe this. And I was like, but what if I read the Bible the same way? And once I did that, that's why I am where I am now.
Okay, so you told your story. Allow me to tell my story. Okay, so at one point I was raised in a church. Now, being raised in the church doesn't make you religious. It doesn't make you Christian. It just pretty much just shows a schedule of where you're going to be. Every Sunday I'm going to be in this building from whatever to whatever. I grew up and there was no real, I didn't really have a draw or call in the God. There was, I knew some stuff, but the Bible, as far as any other religious book, really didn't call to me. Now, I joined the Army, and it started being a point where I would just go from, just to get out of cleaning the bay on Sundays, I would go to every single religious service from morning till night, just so I wouldn't have to be in the bay cleaning it. Now, when you start going to different church services for, going to the mosque for this and going over here for this and going here for this, you start seeing like, so these are the differences. Now, since I have been going, I'll tell you this much. Since I have recommitted myself and since I have actually went past just reading the Bible, there is reading the Bible, and then there is understanding the Bible. And I will tell you that a lot of people who just read the Bible, and no offense about this, that is really where I feel you are. I feel like you've read the words and you've read the stories. However, you've never really tried to understand what it is saying. And I'm telling you that when you take the Bible and you actually read it to understand it, and you take your time with it, not read it with the presupposition that I'm going to try to prove this to be right, I'm going to prove this to be wrong. Because when you read the Bible operating off one of those presuppositions, you're never going to understand it. Take it, get rid of all these preformed notions in your mind that I'm going to prove this is right, I'm going to prove this is wrong, and read it. And when you read it, like I said, I'm not trying to witness to you because I don't want it to seem like I'm doing that to you, but I'm telling you that the Holy Spirit will speak to you. And I'm telling you because it happened to me. So what I'm saying is, it is not just, it's not unproven, and it's not false, because my faith is off what it's obvious, and I see it on a day-to-day basis how it is proven.
I think it's very beautiful, honestly, how certain people, it has impacted their lives. And I think that's a really good thing for you. But at the end of the day, the question that I have to ask is, how do we objectively come to answers? And I have always been someone who genuinely cares about the truth, which I think you do as well. But from an objective standpoint, there would not be a reason to logically come to Christianity except by what you're saying of just sort of letting it be. There wouldn't be any reason to come to it from the outside. For that reason, it seems rather clear that it is at least unproven or false.
Okay, that is extremely untrue, because if that was the case, then the church would die. It wouldn't keep going. The mere fact that churches, they continue to have new people, those are people that are coming from the outside who are coming in as unbiased or maybe been biased against. And they come into the church, they read the Bible, and then they convert and become Christian. So saying that there's no reason to do it from the outside is totally untrue, and is just totally ignoring the fact that the church numbers continue to grow. Churches continue to multiply. That is because these people are seeing it, and it is impacting their lives.